concerns about what a safe consumption site could bring to a neighborhood haven't materialized in other locations. Yesterday, the province confirmed 200 Disraeli Freeway as the proposed spot for the site in Winnipeg. Some have expressed concerns it'll lead to more violence, needles, or people loitering in the area. Dr. Ginette Poulin says most often that's not the case.
People are already around the areas, and this helps to reduce those harms. It helps to bring a place where people can bring back their needles. We don't see an increase in violence in those areas because people are connected into care and connected to treatment.
Poulin says it's important the site be located in an area where people feel comfortable so they can access the care they need. A business owner plagued by theft says going cashless has been the answer. Cinnaholic on McPhillip Street was robbed repeatedly earlier this year. Co-owner Menchie Finley says neither she nor her staff felt safe, so she made the move to becoming cashless. Finley says there haven't been any thefts since making the change.
I actually feel a lot safer knowing that there's no cash in the store, even if there's, an individual that would walk in and that I don't feel safe at all.
Finley says she hasn't seen a drop in sales at all since going cashless. She says it's worked for her business, but says others will have to assess whether it would work for them. A new safe house is opened in Brandon for Indigenous women, Two-Spirit people, and gender-diverse people at risk of harm. It's known as Franny's Place, named after a gregarious Brandon woman who died of addictions after being homeless for years. The province is spending $500,000 on the 10-bedroom safe house. Franny's Place will offer Indigenous, culturally based security, support, and mentorship. Tanya Longclaws plans to move into the third floor of the house. She's from Wew'sicapo.
I just got out of a coma in July, 14 months. I got into a car accident. I rolled. I had my skull is broken. I'm struggling, scared.
The Manitoba Métis Federation and Brandon Neighborhood Renewal Corporation are partners in the project. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has addressed the Assembly of First Nations Conference in Ottawa. He laid out what his government has done for Canada's Indigenous people in Canada, since it took power 9 years ago, his government.
We laid out a better path forward, respect for First Nations sovereignty, true nation-to-nation relationships, and an unwavering commitment to truth and reconciliation. But of course, for all that we've been able to do together, there is much more to do, and I feel the same urgency as you do to move forward, because every day that goes by, there are more problems that we haven't resolved, and there are more issues that we need to keep working on.
One of those unresolved issues is police treatment of First Nations people. In Canada, Trudeau says he is committed to giving First Nations direct control of their community's safety. New York police have released new pictures of a person wanted in connection with yesterday's shooting. The head of one of the largest U.S. health insurance companies was ambushed and killed in Midtown Manhattan. The newly released photos show a man wearing dark clothing with his face uncovered. His face was uncovered. Officials also say bullet casings recovered at the scene were engraved with the words "deny, defend, and depose." Police have not established a motive, but say the shooting was targeted. Your grocery bill will likely be higher next year. A new study estimates it'll be as much as $66 more a month for a family of four. That even outpaces overall inflation. A diving loonie is contributing to the rising costs. Philip De Montini reports.
Everything is going up, but you know what's not going up? The people wages.
It's tough. It's really hard. Unemployment is high, and celery costs $5. Salmon just makes you holler.
In 2025, prices could increase by up to 5%, according to the latest food price report. The annual study from the universities of Dalhousie, Guelph, Saskatchewan, and UBC is considered a benchmark for food price trends. Meat, especially beef, is expected to cost a lot more. Vegetables too. But as the loonie gets weaker, Importing vegetables from the U.S. will cost more.
We're expecting a lower dollar.
Sylvain Charlebois is the study author and leads the Agri-Food Analytics Lab at Dalhousie University.
We will continue to import products from abroad because prices are actually incredibly competitive. But when you do that, you're more vulnerable to macroeconomic factors like the currency.
Philippe de Montigny, CBC News, Toronto.
And the Canada Post strike is now 3 weeks old. A key sticking point is how to staff the corporation's expansion plans, expanding to weekends. Canada Post says it's a way to boost revenue as it struggles to compete with other delivery companies. It says it's given the union a new framework to reach negotiated agreements, including proposals for greater flexibility within its delivery model. Yesterday, Canada Post said it was still waiting for a direct response from the union. Quick look at the forecast. A mix of sun and cloud in Winnipeg today, a high of minus 13 degrees. Brandon, a high of minus 12 with a chance of flurries. Dauphin, a good chance of flurries, a high of minus 10. In Flin Flon, light snow, a high around minus 13. Thompson, periods of light snow, a high of minus 17. And in Churchill, a mix of sun and cloud today with a high around minus 20. Right now, you're listening to CBC Radio 1.
Good afternoon, Manitoba. You're listening to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app and on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk. Good to be with you. Well, coming up this hour on the show, lowering the speed limit on streets in Winnipeg, like Wellington Crescent, has been in the news, but rural municipalities also want more control over how speed limits are set in their communities. Coming up on our call-in conversation, where do you think speed limits should be adjusted, either lowered or raised? We're actually going to have the mayor of Carberry join us to talk about what he wants to see. Also, we're going to hear about that new 24/7 hour safe space in Brandon and what that means for the community there. But first up, Manitoba beef producers are riding the high of record beef prices, but a potential 25% tariff may put a damper on their good fortune. We're going to hear how producers are feeling about that. Well, as mentioned, if you like a good steak, you may have noticed that it's getting a lot more expensive to buy your favorite cut of beef. Those prices are hitting record highs, and ranchers are getting a much-deserved windfall from that. Last year at this time, a young cow would sell for about $3.50 a pound, but now it's about $4.20 a pound, which cows are pretty heavy. So as you can imagine, that adds up. That's a huge jump for farmers, and it's a much needed windfall. But the potential 25% tariff of goods going into the U.S. could change that. Tyler Fulton farms about 600 cows near Birtle, Manitoba, and he's also vice president of the Canadian Cattle Association. Good afternoon to you.
Hey, good afternoon.
So what have these high prices meant for your cattle operation?
Well, we've been able to benefit from some really improved prices, which was much needed. It was a long wait coming off of really the BSE era that really had a depressing effect on prices. So this year, and I think broadly, was a good growing season. And so we didn't have to deal with any natural disasters or droughts that we've seen in recent years. So finally, it's been really positive, and we've been able to kind of improve our farm's equity as a result.
And what's behind this rise in prices?
It's largely a supply-driven factor. Because of the dryness across North America, we've seen the cattle herd shrink to decades low. And so that's kind of the driving factor. There's also other factors like demographics and of course demand-related factors. But overall, we know that consumers still love and are very they desire Canadian beef, and thankfully we're fortunate to be able to provide that.
How long do you think these high prices will last for? Do you think they'll ever break or kind of go back down? Do you think it's a constant up and up from here on in?
Yeah, it's never that way. I'm really optimistic about things. It it takes time to rebuild the herd that has shrunk as a result of the droughts over the last 5 years. And so I we're not even really seeing strong signs of that yet. But I think the profitability that we've got now, that we're experiencing now, will really incentivize young producers to come back to the cattle business, which was a tough sell when it wasn't when it was a struggle.
So that as more people possibly come back, herds grow, higher supply, that could mean a bit of a drop in prices eventually, right? Is that what you're kind of hoping
Yeah,
for? Okay.
yeah, that's exactly right.
Are you seeing that here in Manitoba? More people, coming back? Because I know there was a big exit, like you said, from the drought, things like that. People just couldn't afford to keep their operations going. But do you see more people coming back to ranching, finding it more of a viable option for them as a career?
That's exactly the right word. I think that there's a culture shift in really the viability of our cattle operations. And so yeah, I can cite a friend of mine's son that came back just last year, and he was actually an engineer. He's still an engineer that used to work in Alberta, but he saw an opportunity here in Manitoba, and so that's an awesome success story that we need to share around, because there's opportunities.
Now, looming over all of this positivity is this potential 25% tariff that Trump's threatened to slap on everything coming from Canada into the U.S. What could that mean for the cattle industry here in Manitoba and for ranchers like yourself?
Yeah, the tariff threats are a big concern to the beef industry in Canada. We across Canada, of all of the beef and cattle that we produce, we export close to half of it, and most of that goes to the United States. So when there's a threat of something that could be a barrier to exporting that beef and live animals, then that's really concerning to us. As a result, like, we are doing everything kind of as an industry in our power to work with our U.S. counterparts, for example, to just hammer down the benefits of an open border. We're really confident that we've got a strong message to pass along to say U.S. and Canadian consumers and ranchers both benefit from an open border and just more resilient supply chains.
Yeah, what are you hearing from buyers down south, like across the border? That are they thinking this tariff is a good thing or a bad thing for them?
Well, you can imagine. I'm sure there's a broad degree of opinions on it, but I can say that our counterparts in the United States, the ranching group called the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, they're proponents of trade, open and free trade, and so they know the reliance that we have on this integrated cattle and beef market in that our border is a part of.
And if these tariffs do come into effect, what could that mean for prices? Would it make them go up or down, you think?
It'd be devastating. So there would be multiple kind of effects that would be difficult really to project. There's a lot of different scenarios that would need to be played out. But overall, from a Canadian rancher standpoint, it would be very negative. And I think in the long run, obviously with Canada's economy relying so much on exports, not just of ag products, and imports for that matter, it would be concerning. Just a little interesting statistic: the Canadian consumer consumes about $700 worth of ag products from the U.S., whereas the U.S. consumer consumes about $100 of ag products from Canada. So it's already a disproportionate trade on the ag side from a consumer standpoint, and we just know that we're all better off if we can avoid these barriers.
Well, Tyler, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks so much for your time this afternoon.
Thanks for the opportunity.
That's Tyler Fulton. He farms about 600 cows near Birtle, Manitoba. He's also vice president of the Canadian Cattle Association.
This winter, help us make the season kind by supporting Harvest Manitoba. I'm Vince Barletta, CEO of Harvest Manitoba. All it takes is one can of food, $1, or even 1 hour of your time. Join CBC as we donate a day of programming in support of Harvest Manitoba December 6th. Find ways to give to Harvest Manitoba at cbc.ca/kindmb.
You're listening to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. And still to come here on the show, a new 24/7 safe space in Brandon was announced by the province this morning, where Indigenous women, Two-Spirit, and gender-diverse people at risk of harm can escape violence and heal. So we're going to hear from the family of Francine Demas, the namesake of the street safe house called Franny's Place. That's coming up. We're also going to open up the phone lines to hear about speed limits, to talk about speed limits on our provincial roads. You want to see them lowered or heightened? Call in, tell us what you want to see on your roads in your community, because I know it's a big talker in many communities. We're going to actually have the mayor of Carberry join us. We know for a fact that is a big talker in that community. But right now, let's take a look at your weather. And good news, it looks like we're coming near the end of this cold snap. Overnight, believe it or not, it's actually going to get warmer. From -12, it's actually going to go down to -9 overnight. But right now in Winnipeg, we are sitting at -16. It is going to warm up to -12 is our high today. In Brandon right now, we are sitting at approximately -14. It's cloudy at the airport. Churchill at the airport, you're seeing some ice crystals, -20. Gillam, you're a cold spot with -21 right now. Mercury is our hot spot at -9. Thompson, you are seeing some light snow with -21. And Winnipeg at the airport, mostly cloudy, -16. Well, as mentioned, the province announced this morning $500,000 in funding for a new 24/7 safe space in Brandon. It will support Indigenous women, Two-Spirit, and gender-diverse people at risk of harm to escape violence and help each other heal. The new street safe house is called Franny's Place. It'll include 10 bedrooms, shared spaces, and will provide outreach services and other supports to help people find safe housing. Here's Minister of Families Nahani Fontaine making the announcement this morning.
2 weeks ago, we unveiled Minoaweak Ikwayak, All Women Doing Well. It is our provincial strategy to empower and heal and ensure that Indigenous women have the supports that they need to thrive in Manitoba. Minoaweak Ikwayak is centered on a dream. It's got 10 pillars, one of which is housing and security, to ensure that all Manitobans come together to realize this dream on behalf of Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirited and gender-diverse relatives. I know that I don't need to tell folks that Indigenous women, girls, Two-Spirit, and gender-diverse folks face some of the highest levels of gender-based violence, and on a daily basis in our province are navigating a variety of different systems that make them unsafe. And today's announcement is about making Indigenous women, girls, Two-Spirit, and gender-diverse folks safe here in Brandon. So today is another step that we're taking towards realizing the dream and Minoaweak Ikwayak. Our government is supporting a new 24/7 safe space for Indigenous women, girls, Two-Spirit, and gender-diverse relatives here in Brandon with an investment of $500,000. Named Franny's Place, it will be staffed by cookums and aunties who will offer culturally safe services, belonging, and outreach support to Indigenous women, girls, Two-Spirit, and gender-diverse relatives who are living unsheltered and at risk for harm. Franny's Place will offer a safe space to sleep, a warm meal, and community support. It will provide the security and safety and peace needed to help women on their path to healing and recovery. The opening of this safe space honors our commitment to increase access to 24/7 safe spaces across Manitoba, and it supports two pillars of our Miniwauaki strategy: justice and safety, and housing. Franny's Place will be opened in partnership with the Manitoba Métis Federation, the Brandon Neighborhood Renewal Corporation's Action Research on Chronic Homelessness. I want to say miigwech to our partners for both being partners in this deeply important and sacred work. Franny's Place is an expansion of Chelsea's Safe House, which we visited with folks there, I think just a couple of months ago. And Chelsea's House provides a place of comfort and safety for community members in need since May of this year. It's just one example of the excellent work that Brandon is doing to ensure that Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirited are safe and cared for. So as we build this work together, I lift up all of the amazing community workers and volunteers who have dedicated so much to protecting and empowering Indigenous women, girls, Two-Spirit, and gender diverse folks. I want folks to know, and know this today, that our government is here to work in partnership and to realize the dream, but in partnership with folks that are on the front lines. I want folks to know that they've got a real partner in our government to do this sacred work.
That's Nahanni Fontaine, Minister of Families, announcing a new 24/7 safe space in Brandon. It's called Franny's Place, and it's named after Francine Demas. She briefly lived in transitional housing after spending decades unhoused, and she died December 23rd of last year. She was 41 years old, and CBC's Chelsea Kemp spoke with members of Francine Demas's family, and she first asked Francine's niece, Mercedes Demas, what her aunt was like.
She was happy, giggly. She was full of excitement. Like she's always been happy and go-lucky, free-spirited girl since she was young, and she was always out there in the public and meeting other people. That was her kind of world, And she loved people. Yeah, definitely.
What was Francine like? What would you want people to know about her?
Oh, Francine, she was such a sweetheart. Everywhere you see her, she's so happy to see you, happy. Anything that she has, she'll give.
She always gave whatever she had. Like, she was so generous, and she was so sweet and kind. And
she struck me as a lady who kind of knew what she wanted and wasn't afraid to tell you. Is that fair for me to say too?
Yes. Yeah, she was very bold and courageous. And she would just speak her mind. If she didn't like something, she'll tell you. She was fiercely protective of us, the family. And I remember a lot of times she would give some delegates, heck, you leave my family alone. That's just who she was. Like, she expressed herself in ways that, that would reach the public. Yeah.
How does it feel knowing like this house has been named after her, that's about being bold, about being courageous and keeping women safe?
Well, like I said, I was telling the other delegates today that I'm blessed beyond measure because we're actually going to try to start something like this in her name. And then this came up, and it just so happens it's on her sister's birthday today. So she was really blessed that she said this was the best present she's ever received just before Christmas. Yeah. And I think it's going to benefit a lot of young women that are out there on the streets because, we walk around or we go downtown and we see young women struggling on the streets. And these are First Nations young women. And my heart goes out to them when I see them struggling like that. And I think of my own late daughter, what she had to go through. So I think this place is going to be wonderful. I think it's going to really benefit. It's going to be, I call this new beginnings. This is going to be new beginnings for our family and for the public and for everyone that's involved. So I'm very blessed beyond measure today to have received such a blessed hope for other young women out there that are struggling. There is hope, and if we can all just put something into it and work together, like the other delegates have said, we can work together and make this a positive thing for other young women out there that are struggling today. So I think it's going to be a huge impact. It's only the beginning. Like I said, it's only the beginnings, fresh beginnings.
How long was Francine living rough downtown here in Brandon?
Yeah, she started her addictions when she was about 17. And then it just continued on and on and on till, it took her, the drinking now took her life, the addictions took her life. So It was very sad, but we tried everything else we can as a family to help and encourage her to stay off the street. So I think with this Franny's Place in place, I think this will impact the government and maybe change some of the laws to help women that are addicted, and not just women, but also young men as well, because they are a future generation.
That was Priscilla Ireland, Francine Demas' mother, speaking this morning with CBC's Chelsea Kemp. And you could read more on Franny's house. Just go to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
I'm Nala Ayed, host of Ideas. Are there better ways for us to talk to each other? And could that help us build a better society? Novelist and poet Ian Williams wants to start a conversation about conversations. The 2024 CBC Massey Lectures on Ideas, What I Mean to Say, Remaking Conversations in Our Time. Find Ideas wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
12:25 right now on Radio Noon. And have you heard of raw milk? Well, it's once again making headlines after bird flu was discovered in samples of unpasteurized milk sold by a farm in California. And still, proponents of unpasteurized milk argue that it's healthier than pasteurized milk, despite the established science. And this week on CBC's The Dose podcast, food safety microbiologist Lawrence Goodridge explains why pasteurized milk is the safer option, while also debunking some common misconceptions about raw milk.
Pasteurization is a process that we can trace back to 1861. The French chemist Louis Pasteur conducted some experiments where he proved a concept known as germ theory. He subsequently invented a process, pasteurization, by which bacteria could be killed by heating beverages. In his case, it was wine between 60 and 100 degrees Celsius and then letting it cool. And so he then went on to patent this pasteurization process, and it was applied to various liquids, beer, juice, liquid eggs, and most famously, milk. The pasteurization process that we use today is directly descended from that invention, where we heat liquids. We're talking about milk today, but, juices and other liquids to 72 degrees for 15 seconds or 63 degrees for 30 minutes. And both of those treatments are equivalent.
That's food safety microbiologist and director of the University of Guelph's Canadian Research Centre for Food Safety, Lawrence Goodridge. And you can hear the full episode today on The Dose with Dr. Brian Goldman. You can also catch the show on CBC Listen or your favorite podcast app.
I've been waiting for something to come around. I've been dreaming to find my ground. It's the smoke, victory. Empty bottles lying on the floor. Predictable predicament you can't ignore. They're not worried. They think that you're okay. Sometimes in the silence, things get lost in the way. It's the smoke, victory. And she's not looking for a fight, trying to ride the line between what's wrong and what's right. But they're pushing and pulling with their might. She tries to find a way between the dark and the light. It's the smoke.
That's Winnipeg's blues singer, Rami Mays, with their song Small Victories. Well, stay tuned because we're going to be opening up the phone lines to talk about speed limits, particularly rural speed limits, because municipalities, they want more control over whether they can raise or lower them. We're going to actually have the mayor of Carberry join us. We also want you to call in what you want to see in your community. Is there a certain road you think should be faster, slower? You can give us a call. We're going to open up our phone lines now, 204-780-0893. We're going to hear what you have to say after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. At 12:30, we're at minus 15 degrees with mainly sunny skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon. I'm Matt Humphrey. A specialist in addictions says safe consumption sites do not bring more crime and violence to a neighborhood. The province has chosen 200 Disraeli Freeway as the proposed site in Winnipeg. Concerns have been raised as there's a school, daycares, homes, and businesses nearby. Dr. Jeanette Poulin says in other jurisdictions where sites have been located, there has not been an increase in violence or items like needles. She says it's important to have the site in an area where people are already using.
And I think for people who use the sites, it's very important that they feel comfortable, that it's an area that they actually frequent, that they will want to feel accepted and not judged for them to actually utilize that site.
Poulin says it's not uncommon to hear concerns raised in surrounding communities, but often the issues do not materialize. A Winnipeg business has found a way to stop rampant theft by no longer accepting cash. Earlier this year, Cinnaholic on McPhillip Street was robbed repeatedly. One person brazenly took their cash register. Co-owner Menchie Finley says that was the last straw, and she says going cashless has made a difference.
Makes my staff feel safer as well. And since then, I haven't had any instances or incident.
Finley says she's not seen an effect on sales as a result of going cashless. She says it has worked for her, but other businesses will have to assess it for themselves. Brandon has a new safe house for Indigenous women, Two-Spirit people, and gender-diverse people at risk of harm. It's known as Franny's Place, named after a Brandon woman who died of addictions after being homeless for years. Sam Vendemham of the Manitoba Métis Federation says Francine Damas of Sioux Valley made a huge impression on everyone.
And if she knew you, it was Fran. If she liked you, then you could call her Franny. She was a fierce protector of those that she loved, and she stood up for people and was a very big voice in our community. She wanted somewhere for people to go who needed a break for a few hours, a few days before they returned to what they needed to do.
Vandenham says her agency will serve hot food to people in a homeless camp every 2 weeks to honor Demis. The province is spending $500,000 on Franny's Place. It'll offer Indigenous, culturally based security, support, and mentorship. And finally, a motion that would have reduced the speed limit on Wellington Crescent failed to win enough votes at the City of Winnipeg's Executive Policy Committee meeting. It would have lowered the speed limit on the road to 30 kilometers from River Avenue to the western end of Academy Road. The EPC, the mayor's inner circle, voted 3-2 against the part of the motion lowering the speed. Mayor Scott Gillingham says he can't support it without first knowing how it would affect surrounding communities. And that's your CBC News from Winnipeg.
What a transition there, Matt, because we're just a few minutes away from opening up the phone lines to have people share what they would like to see in terms of speed limits in their community. So
I didn't plan that at all.
Just accidental excellence. We love that. Thank you very much, Matt.
Baxter.
So speaking of that, we actually are going to be having the mayor of Carberry join us because the whole thing that spurs this is that there are rural municipalities. They want to have more control over whether they can raise or lower those speed limits. So whether you live rurally or you live here in the city in Winnipeg or in Brandon, and there's a street you're like, this speed limit needs to go down or it needs to go up. Tell us about it. Tell us what you'd like to see. We're opening up the phone lines, 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. But right now, though, you probably want to know exactly whether it's maybe good driving conditions in general or just what the weather's going to be like. We have Riley Lachuk in with us. Hello.
A little bit breezy still out in the open areas. I know the wind wasn't terrible this morning, but we start to see the wind kick up again. So we're about southwest 20 in Winnipeg right now. So the odd gust out there as well.
Not too bad.
Not too bad, but considering it's minus 16 right now, maybe a bit of a bite out there at the moment. Minus 14s to the west through Brandon, Portage, Muleta, Dauphin's at minus 10 right now. Thompson at minus 20. We will warm up a little bit through the day today, but we don't start to get some substantial warming until we get into the overnight period, and certainly by the time we get to the morning. A couple little short bursts of energy on radar right now along that Trans-Canada corridor, along Highway number 2, south of Carberry into the Austin-McGregor region to the east in that area. So Carberry to Austin, seeing a few flurries out there. Nothing too terrible to worry about. Otherwise, mix of sun and clouds across the south, and that's what we can expect through the day today. For northern Manitoba, there is a weak area of instability that is moving south and east through the Thompson region right now. A few flurries into the Paw and Flin Flon today. This does bring about 2 to 4 centimeters of snow to places like Thompson through Island Lake. Even Barons River can expect a couple of centimeters of snow as we get through the evening tonight. In Winnipeg, we do see clouds building in as we get through the afternoon hours. This area of instability gives us a slight chance of a flurry this evening. Into the northwestern part of Ontario, this is more like 2 centimeters of snow through the overnight period Thursday into Friday. Friday, we do clear out. And then we see in our next round of precipitation. This is a bit of a more substantial system moving from the Northwest Territories through northern Saskatchewan, through northern Manitoba once again. And what this will do is bring us a fairly widespread risk across southern and central Manitoba of some freezing rain Friday night into Saturday. So we see a warm front pushing through, which will really warm our temperatures as we get through Saturday and into Sunday. So we're looking at a couple of rounds of precipitation coming to parts of the province. As mentioned, over the next 24 hours or so, 2 to 4 centimeters of snow in Thompson, 2 to 4 into the Barons River region, and I've got the Kenora-Dryden region in that 2 centimeter range. Again, a slight chance we could see a couple flurries overnight tonight in Winnipeg. Today in Winnipeg, afternoon temperature around minus 13 will continue to climb as we get through the overnight hours tonight. So an evening temperature around minus 12, climbing to minus 9 by morning, minus 6 by the afternoon hours tomorrow in the city, with that risk of freezing rain in the evening into Saturday morning. Saturday plus 2.
Whoa.
We have another risk of some freezing rain as we get through Sunday. An Alberta Clipper will move through, and this will give us some fairly widespread snow as we get through Sunday into Monday. So right now, I'm looking at Sunday through till the end of Monday, about 5 to 10 centimeters generally across southern Manitoba. We'll check back tomorrow and see how things progress here. But that's what I'm saying just for the moment anyway. Breezy conditions through Sunday, Monday, and then as we get into Tuesday, we see temperatures falling back down to more normal highs of minus 9 and continuing to fall into next week again.
Okay, thank you very much there, Riley.
You're welcome.
That is Riley Laychuk. He is our climate change reporter and our CBC weather specialist. I'm Corey Funk, and I do want to tell you a little bit about tomorrow's program because we have a very special day of programming tomorrow. It's Make the Season Kind here, and where we dedicate our full day of local programming to Harvest Manitoba to raise funds for them. So we are going to be having a whole host of local artists actually joining us on our shows. And tomorrow on Radio Noon, we're going to have Diaphne, a local artist, play for us. We're also going to hear stories about rural food banks and the impact that Harvest has for them. So that's what we're going to have tomorrow on the show. So look forward to that. Tune into that and donate. We're going to give you a number to call, or there's also going to be a website you can go to donate tomorrow. So tune in. There's be full of just lovely stories and just great vibes overall to hear about how your community can be impacted by just a simple donation. So that's coming up tomorrow on Radio Noon. We are going to be talking very shortly. We're going to open up the phone lines, but first, some music here for you. J.J. Miller grew up in a religious community where Bible characters were a part of his upbringing, but now the Edmonton-based musician is taking a look back on that experience with a mixture of fondness, skepticism, and a bit of dry humor as well. It's all part of his new album, Hometown Believer, and from it, here's J.J. Miller with Back from Irian Jaya. Enjoy.
I used to shake a prophet's hand. I'd take a seat, he'd take the stand. It was after the band. He'd tell us about the motherland. He was a Scottish man of war with all his crimes to answer for. He was keeping score. He had blood but wanted more. Raising his hands, touching the sky.
That's JJ Miller with Back from Irian Jaya. Well, 12:39 right now, and it is time for the call-in portion of our show. And Manitoba municipalities are trying to convince the province to give up some of its decision-making power over setting speed limits. The Association of Manitoba Municipalities wants RMs to have the final say on how fast drivers can travel on provincial highways and trunk roads. And at the AMM Annual General Conference last week, 5 communities sponsored the resolution that was approved, but they say they now have to wait for the province to approve those changes, which can take a year or even longer. And Transportation Minister Lisa Naylor isn't ready to give up control.
Inappropriate speed limits could lead to safety issues. We don't, drivers can make mistakes. We have to look at our entire highway network, and those decisions have to make sense within the context of the network.
Naylor says that the government is hiring more staff to deal with municipal requests more quickly. And what highways or roads in our province do you think need to have the speed limits changed, higher or lower? Maybe you feel traffic is too fast or too slow. Give us a call, 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. You can also text us. We've got a text line, 204-588-7355. That's 204-588-7355. Well, the town of Carberry was one of the 5 municipalities that sponsored this resolution, and Ray Muirhead is Carberry's mayor. Hello there, Ray.
Hello.
So tell me a little bit about why your municipality wants more control over speed limits.
Well, like any other small community across Manitoba, our boundaries are increasing outwards drastically, and we need our speed limits to reflect that. Right now, we have 2 highways that run through town. Actually, 351 runs east-west. It actually becomes our first avenue. And we have number 5 highway, which bypasses around Carberry, but it continues on right into town. And the speed limits reflect, on Wellwood Road it's called, reflect the highway speed. And these 2 highways in either direction are actually going through residential areas right now. And one goes right beside a children's park, and the other one going north will be going right past residential areas and our future campground and play structure, spray park, zip line. So we are trying very hard to get the speed limits reduced. We have on the 351 for several years now, but it takes forever to get it done, and we need that reduced drastically for safety reasons.
And we played a clip from Transportation Minister Lisa Naylor there. What did you make of what she had to say?
I understand where the province comes from. When it comes to provincial trunk highways, they have control and they have to look at it from all aspects. But when it comes to, and I'll use the community of Carberry as an example, where you have highways going right through town and right into town, we should be able to have more control over our speed limits. It comes down basically to common sense, really. I mean, we're the ones that live here. We know where the highways go. We know the residential areas, the playgrounds, the rec center, everything else. So, I mean, it should be simple. Several years ago, we went through a process where we tried to get the speed limit reduced from 70 to 50 beside a residential area and right beside a children's park. And the hoops and the hurdles that we had to go through are nothing short of ridiculous. I mean, it's just common sense. So we should be able to have a say in. We should be able to expedite the process and make it so you don't have to wait years or several years to get this done. We'd like to have some control of speed limits within our town. So that's where we stand.
And of course, it was near Carberry where the bus crash that killed 17 people happened.
Yes.
That's the deadliest highway crash in Manitoba history. How much does that incident kind of loom over, this push that you're making right now to get more control over speed limits?
Well, anything can happen. That accident unfortunately happened, and we've had several accidents at that same intersection since. And it just raises awareness of speed, driver awareness, the whole bit. And I think speed limit is one of the first things you can do is to reduce, especially within the town. But it just brought awareness to the town, like anything could happen. So we're trying to be proactive on this, not reactive. We don't want something bad to happen within our town and then have to think, we should have, could have, would have done something. So we're trying to get on this, and we're trying to get on it fast. And it shouldn't take, I know the wheels of progress turn very slowly with government, but it shouldn't take that long with something that is so common sense, if you will.
Give us a call if you want to share, talk about maybe a road or highway near you that you think needs a speed limit change. Tell us your stories, what you've experienced. 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. And we actually have Shane on the line. Hi there, Shane. Hello? Oh, I think we may have lost Shane. Shane, if you're listening, do call back, because I know he had some thoughts actually about a road here in Winnipeg. Are you aware of any other highways or roads, Mr. Mayor, in the province that need attention immediately, in your opinion, not even necessarily in your own municipality?
Not offhand. I'm sure there are. I'm just not 100% sure. But the thing otherwise, too, is we have control over our streets in Carberry as a council. So we took the initiative, of course, to reduce our speed limit from 50 kilometers an hour to 30 around the school zones on all streets. And all it took was, 3 readings of a bylaw. It was just common sense. So we just would like to be able to have that kind of input with our other. Actually, one of these highways, this 351, goes right by our school, and they reduced it to 30. So I don't see what's so hard. But as far as other communities, I'm sure there are ones out there that are facing the same issues. I can't think of any offhand.
And I know you're one of a group of municipalities. So what's the next steps now? So you've got response from the transport minister. Where are things now? What's the next step?
Well, we're working closely. We're trying to get a meeting with Minister Naylor. We want to meet. We want to get on this. We don't want to let this go. We don't. The last time we went through this was last term, and I'm guessing 3 to 4 years ago, and nothing still has been done. And it comes, to our council table few times a year, and we just keep going around and around. So we want to reach out to Minister Naylor. We're willing to work with him, but we want to expedite this. We want to get this going. It can't. We have a 90 kilometer an hour zone right now that is right beside somebody's house on Wellwood Road, which goes out to number 5 highway. All we want to do is just move that 90 kilometer an hour zone out to our bypass, which is just a matter of, it should be, picking up the sign and moving it out north a few hundred yards. But it shouldn't be that hard. So, we've got people, you're not supposed to start accelerating until after you hit the sign. But of course, there are some people that feel they have to be doing 90 kilometers an hour by the time they hit the sign. And when you're right beside our local rec center and residential areas, it's not good. So it's not, as they say, rocket science. So we're hoping to meet with Minister Naylor and whomever else to fast forward this.
Well, Mayor Muirhead, thanks for joining us this afternoon. All the best.
Yes, thank you very much.
That's Ray Muirhead. He is Mayor of Carberry.
Manitoba is the kind of place that draws you in. Every day it's growing, it's changing. Just when you think you've got it figured out, though, there's something new to understand. I'm Marcy Marcusa, host of the CBC Daily Podcast. This is Manitoba. I've covered the news from the rail line in Churchill to the border in Emerson, and it's talking about the local stories that help us understand this place. That's what This is Manitoba is all about. Find it on CBC Listen or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
It's one of the most anticipated CBC music events of the year. Joy to the World, Euro Radio Christmas Music Day. Hi, I'm Paolo Pietropaolo, and I'd like to invite you to join me as I take you to the concert halls and churches of Europe and to Montreal for classical holiday favorites. Sunday, December 22nd, starting at 9 a.m., 9:30 in Newfoundland on CBC Music. And on the CBC Listen app. For the full broadcast schedule, go to cbcmusic.ca/joy.
12:48 here, 12:49 actually now on CBC Radio 1. And time for our word nerd, Elizabeth Withy, because it's a bit of a cool day today. So we thought we'd bring you the topic, which is something hot, spicy, and a bit delicious too.
We need to talk about chai tea. Why? because the word chai actually means tea in many languages, including Urdu, Hindi, Russian, Persian, Turkish, and Arabic. So when we say chai tea, we're actually saying tea tea. The words chai and tea and all their many variants can be traced back to the Mandarin word for tea, cha, because this notion of leaves steeped in liquid for drinking and the leaves used to do it originated in China, but then was exported around the world. And the word went along for the ride. It just transformed along the way.
Can't be everybody's cup of tea. Some like the bitter, some the sweet. Nobody.
In English, we say tea, because starting in the 1600s, the Dutch were a major importer of tea leaves throughout Western Europe via ships. The Dutch say thee because they got their thé from a part of China that spoke a dialect then known as Amoy. Hence words for tea that sound like thé in places like France, Germany, Scandinavia, and Spain. Even in English, tea was originally pronounced té.
Tea is a herb that's been dried out. So to bring it back to life, you have to infuse it in boiling water. That is boiling water.
But all the languages that say chai, or something similar to it, were first introduced to tea via overland trade routes through Asia. You know, the Silk Road. And so the word cha or chai traveled that way.
And I'm now a big old, chai tea, latte, soy milk kind of guy.
Oh, soy, yeah.
Because of the lactose.
Mm-hmm.
In conclusion, you do not need to say chai tea. You can just say chai. It's a special kind of tea, but it's still tea. For CBC Radio, I'm Elizabeth Withy.
Oh, how I love my tea. Tea in the afternoon. I can't do without it.
I remember when I first realized that I was in Turkey and they call it chai, and I was like, chai, tea? Whoa. It's actually just saying like tea. It kind of blew my mind. That was Elizabeth Withy with her Word Nerd column. Well, up next year, time for a bit of music from local Ariel Posen. 2025 is actually shaping up to be a busy year for him. The Winnipeg guitarist will be kicking things off with a solo tour across the Northeast. Also, this year still, at the end of the month, he's actually got a show coming up, the Hometown Holiday Party on December 19th at Side Stage. That's just in South Osborne there, right beside the Park Theater. So that should be a fun show. So we thought we'd play a little bit of him here on Radio Noon. Here's a new song from him now. It's called These Walls.
Can't see the light. It's been out for a while. Feel like a shell of myself, scattered for miles. I know it's wrong. I can't hold back. Been strung along for so long, I've lost track. Spin my wheels, I'm losing sight. Gonna be another lonely night within these walls. Take comfort in these walls. This living room been empty for years. All through the cracks I see the moon and the spirits that lived here. within these walls. Take comfort in these walls. Maybe it's the way that I lie, keeps my hands tied. I'll never break free. I'm feeling out of my mind. I don't know why these walls give me comfort. Spin my wheels, I'm losing sight. Gonna be another lonely night within these walls. Take comfort in these walls. Maybe it's the way that I lie, keeps my hands tied. I'll never break free. I'm feeling out of my mind. I don't know why these walls give me comfort. Maybe it's the way that I lie, keeps my hands tied. I'll never break free. I'm feeling out of my mind. I don't know why these walls give me comfort. These walls give me comfort.
That's Ariel Posen with These Walls. And you can catch his concert that he's calling a hometown holiday party on December 19th at Side Stage in South Osborne. Well, before we cap off the show here, we just had our call in, but we got a late text that came in. We were talking about rural speed limits. There are municipalities that want more control over the speed limits. They're asking the province to help them be able to control whether they can go up or down. But we just had the mayor of Carberry on actually talk about his efforts to try to get more control over that. We got a text from Len. He says, this has to be thought out carefully. This is a quote. It has to be thought out carefully before we let each municipality make their own speed limits. He says, look at the school zones. It's a nightmare. There is nothing consistent from one town to the other. Absolutely ridiculous, he says. I drive through Carberry intersection once in a while. I slow down to 100 and there's vehicles and somebody's passing me doing 110, 120. What we need is police out there. Unquote. Thanks for that text, Len. Really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone as well who calls in on our call-in segments. We're going to have more call-ins again tomorrow for Make the Season Kind. This is actually a special day of programming where we raise money for Harvest Manitoba. We're going to have local artist Diaphane join us right here on the show while we raise money for Harvest Manitoba. So tune in for that. There's going to be live music all day on all of our local programs. Should be really fun and uplifting and a good reminder of the need that's out there as well in our community for food. Well, that is a wrap for Radio Noon. Thanks to everyone who helped put together today's show. Marshall Hodgins, Sierra Sanders, Wendy Parker, and I am Corey Funk. I'll be back tomorrow for our special Harvest show. Up next on CBC Radio 1, Quirks and Quarks. Have a good one.